Absolutely. There was a meme I saw,
Yeah.
and it was some like parent or like some person saying like, "Oh yeah, kids, video games make kids worse." And then it showed a picture of a guy, and he's like, "I felt bad for killing him," or like, "I drove like a guy like driving correctly in traffic in like Grand Theft Auto," or like
Yeah.
picking the nice dialogue choices. Like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Full paragon protagonist, all blue, no bad guy in this thing. Like I like try never to do a dark side thing in a Star Wars game. It's just like, yeah, it's like, yeah, sure, it makes people evil. It's like, no, it gives people the opportunity, but it doesn't make people make these choices.
Right.
It will reflect the reality that you want to project. And like and I don't like dishonesty. I don't even swear. And so when my character has swearing in the dialogue, I try to avoid that option. I was just like, I don't want to say that.
I can tell you're very immersed in games, or you're very like you very much take it from like a first person like perspective.
Well, to tell you how immersed I was is, um did you ever play the Command and Conquer series stuff like Red Alert or any
Uh,
of that?
I wanted to, but I didn't.
Okay.
Not
So
enough.
um I would kind of get into the role playing of being the commander. And so when the characters on the screen were addressing me like I'm talking to Kane or someone, or uh or Stalin, or some of the allied or Einstein uh uh in Red Alert 2, he will address the commander. I'll be like looking at him and nodding and agreeing with him and stuff like that. Um and then like Yuri would come on from Yuri's Revenge, and he'd be like taunting me. I'm like, yeah, sure. It's just going back and forth with these people that were just hammy actors doing a funny video game.
That's great.
But I mean, they had the greatest people on those games. They got Tim Curry. They got freaking Tim Curry for Red Alert 3. That's hilarious. But the the first person projections affect how you interact kind of interpersonally.
Right.
Um,
Right.
to give an example, I said a while back, I said something a while back, and Voth had said something similar, where he said that he was working on a book, and the person he was writing was a terrible human being, and was extremely resentful. And then one day he snapped at his wife. Voth snapped at his wife, and then he stopped himself and he said, "Why did I do that? Like, why was I angry at that moment?" And then he realized it was because he was in the midst of writing this character, and this character was in his head, and he was kind of living through this character's life at the same time he was writing it, and it was affecting him. And so he had to stop writing for a couple of months. And I said, yes, that is exactly what happens. I said in one of my posts on his memorial wall, I wish people had warned me about becoming a writer, because the the worlds that writers create are real and they live in them.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that experience, uh, where I was writing a death in one of my books, and I had to write the reactions of my characters, and I had to get up and talk to somebody afterwards because I felt terrible. Because not only did I have to live through the grief, I had to live through the fact that I was the one technically killing them.
Yeah, man.
It's just like, gee whiz, why is this so visceral? But it's true. Your imagination is a part of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you interact with these video games and you think about them, there is something real there. I'm not saying video games cause violence, but they can make you a little bit more aggressive.
So how'd you I'm just curious about the death in the book. Is that the book you're writing now?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so was that so you had to make the scenario, and then like did he die in a bad way? Or how did
Yeah, yeah, he was slumped over, sitting on a bunch of crumpled boxes like this, and his
man.
yeah, it was blood running down the shirt and everything. I had to describe it. I had to tell him what happened. Like, it was the guy that was standing, that he was talking to, had to realize it had happened, because it was one of those like silent kills kind of thing where it's like it happens and then someone notices, and it's just like, oh my gosh, and then everything kind of exploded from there.
Yeah.
And it's a huge scene, because that's where it starts. That's not where it stops. That starts there and then gets more
Jeez.
visceral, and more things happen and more people die. It's like the Red Wedding. It just got terrifying internally that I had to write that. And so as soon as I was done, there was a fight at the end of that chapter. As soon as I was done with that, I just had to kind of take a breath, and like, geez, because I lived through the fight. I lived through the gunshots in the hallway. I lived through the knives and all of that stuff. It like I have to describe this stuff, and it just seems like words on a page, and it's not.
Man.
Yeah. And so you can get into that in embodying someone in a video game, where
Yeah.
it's just like, oh my gosh, I made this choice and that person died. I feel terrible. I need to reload. Like, and you don't even feel fully okay after reloading, because it still kind of happened in your mind.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely have realized that you can tell some things about people's personality by watching them play games.
Mm-hmm.
Like, or like how they relate to playing games. Like my brother, he'll play Grand Theft Auto and he'll just like willy-nilly, hilariously just run people like just destroy people. And it's funny when it's funny. Like he's basically doing it to get a reaction from me or whoever's like watching.
Mm-hmm.
Um and then like me, I'll be like having a moral conundrum, or like, and then my dad, he's the one who like wants to learn everything before he moves on to like the next room.
Yeah.
Very much adventuring.
Yeah.
And so you have like these
That's
different gameplay
he's
styles.
got a Fallout mentality where you're checking every single drawer, and you want
Yes.
to make sure that you don't leave any money behind or stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah. I was a complete scavenger in Fallout. I had everything. Like all of the money that I acquired was not from selling things. It was from looking through every single drawer.
Yeah, dude. I could definitely I could spend a long time in one room.
Mm-hmm.
Like just looking at stuff and trying to find everything and seeing yeah.
A fun thing to do with a friend in something like a co-op game. Like, I used to do this in not Fallout, in Halo. In Halo, there was a really great thing that you could do with a friend. Um, Find a doldrum or clear out an area or something where you can just stand around and talk and look at the environment, and then try to figure out what happened. It's just tell a story with what's going on in the environment. Or you can go to a multiplayer map and try to figure out what happened there before you showed up. And you'll see things like there's a pile of papers on the ground here. It's like, okay, so here there was a scuffle, or somebody had to run away in a hurry. There was something urgent going on here. The door is blasted open. Why? And then you start asking these questions and connecting these dots, and suddenly you're at the other end of the map, and you're like, so that's where he got out. And it's just like, who? It's like, we don't know. like, or they died here, and you can see like a body left there or something, and you can really carry through the storylines, which happened in Halo ODST. The entire thing was a what happened here.
Okay.
That game is you filling in the blanks of what's going on in the city while it's being occupied by the Covenant and trying not to get shot. Yeah.
Dude, that's cool.
Yeah, it was a fantastic game.
That's cool. That's cool. So you like, so you go to an environment and try it, like, can this, so I'm thinking like, okay, so I'm playing Call of Duty and just going into a map and like seeing, okay, so that truck, you can see the tracks from the truck going here to where it's parked.
Yeah.
And
the door's open. Where's the driver? Where did he go? Yeah.
That's hilarious.
You can do it from any map, anywhere, anything, unless it's just like a completely open field and you don't see any debris or anything. You can usually figure something out through just what was it called? I think it's abductive reasoning, where you're making educated guesses based off of your assumptions.
Right.
It's not deductive. It's abductive. That's what Sherlock Holmes does. Abductive reasoning. He makes extremely educated guesses, and he's usually right. That's why it's kind of insane, because it's not deductive. It's abductive, and he's usually right.
Right.
So it's like being abductive is like you're not usually right for a guess.
Yeah, totally. Like that's, so he basically, like, he would see tracks up to a window and say, take in the whole scene and then say, oh, this is where somebody passed something, or he probably had a better, passed something through the window.
They didn't go in and out of the window. There's no scuffs on the window or anything like that. They traded information there. Yeah, something like that. And that's an educated guess based off of something you're not seeing.
Right.
Because you're not seeing scuffs on the window.
Right.
And so you're making a guess that if somebody had jumped out the window, they were just really careful and didn't scuff the window. But no, this is obviously an information trade, because nobody left the building. Unless the
and
there's no mud inside the building.
unless unless he's a very small character you're looking for, and the profile fits to where he wouldn't make any scuff marks.
Yeah, that too. And so you're starting with a baseline and then making abductive reasoning from what you're not seeing. You're not seeing an individual, you're not seeing a body, so clearly the person is alive or they got out.
Yes. Abductive reasoning.
Yeah.
I've got a definition. The third method of reasoning, abduction, is defined as a syllogism in which the major premise is evident, but the minor premise and therefore the conclusion only probable. Basically, it involves forming a conclusion from the information that is known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's an extremely educated guess.
Right.
Because you don't know the answer. And if it's right, then that's proper abductive reasoning. If you're wrong, you're just wrong.
Okay. So deductive reasoning or deduction is making an inference based on widely accepted facts or premises. If a beverage is defined as drinkable through a straw, one could use deduction to determine soup to be a beverage. Okay.
Yeah.
Induction is making an inference based on an observation.
It's much easier to make things out of deductive reasoning, and a lot easier to make events out of abductive reasoning.
Or there's induction, it's saying, is making an inference based on an observation, often of a sample. Okay.
Yeah. Oh wait, no, yeah, it's not abductive. Yeah, I think inductive. I think that's what Holmes does. It's inductive. Okay. Yeah. You have a sample and so you're making a guess. Um, so it's like him guessing so many extremely accurate things off of a single thing he sees about you, and suddenly everything else is like comes into picture for him because he saw a little bit of powdered sugar on your, on your
Right.
pocket. It's just like,
Right.
oh, okay, so you're a diabetic. Like, well, what do you mean? Like, well, you're in you're you're in a hospital for high blood sugar, but you keep eating. Like, oh. And it's like, and you're in the waiting room and you never told him you were diabetic. And this is like, oh, how did you get all of that from sugar? It's like, well, you're out of shape. You know, it's like all of everything lines up from a single thing that he saw.
Sherlock
And
Holmes.
yeah, well, actually, that was an example from House, which is the medical version of Sherlock Holmes,
Yes.
played by a British actor,
Yeah.
and whose best friend is called Wilson instead of Watson. Just like you guys just made medical Holmes. Come on. Holmes, House, really?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
It's
what I
not even subtle.
no, no.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So is there anything that like jumped out at you for Elder Scrolls? Something that
Yeah. Like, I mean, from what you said or just from my experience with it?
your experience.
Um, the relationship between gods and like humans and races, definitely. And how
Yeah.
like that was a big one. And then I guess the environments, like the soundtracks, it seemed to worked well with the environments.
Mm-hmm.
And like it wasn't too invasive, but it was still
Yeah, those ones are dynamic. We have
right.
a Legend of Zelda kind of played with this with the enemy is nearby sound.
Mm-hmm.
That that kind of thing. Whenever there was an enemy nearby, you would subtly start hearing this sound. And the closer you got to them, it was dynamic. It would get louder. So, and the longer it would go on, the more intense it would get. Because
Right.
obviously, if you're close to them and they're still alive, you have to be getting into a pretty heated battle if that's going on. So they deduced or induced that you would have still been in battle if you're around them too long, and so they would have made the music more excited. But the music in Skyrim or Elder Scrolls goes with the action that's going on,
Right.
where you get into a battle, suddenly battle music.
Yes. Yes.
Where it's not like I'm about to be in a fight or I'm next to an enemy. There's no music. It's just still the environmental stuff. It's the subtle things in the background.
And then fight.
Strike, battle music. And so it's not it's very clear cut dynamic music, but it's still dynamic. It's just not as flowing.
Right.
You're not gonna flow in and out of a lot of that music as well. Like Morrowind is very choppy. It will play the battle music after you're done, but it will kind of end the battle music eventually.
Yes. Yes.
Because that's the end of that particular part of the battle music.
Yeah.
But it'll keep going if you're still in battle. But it'll end that part once you're out of battle, but it would have still kept going a little bit longer than usual. Whereas some games have gotten a lot better at that, where they know exactly when the battle is over, and so it'll fade properly. And that usually happens in Skyrim. It'll fade properly.
I remember
a little choppy in Morrowind.
I do remember Morrowind in games where the battle sound goes on longer than the battle, and it's You're like sitting there like, where are they?
Yeah.
Where are they?
Well, it
The
also
music.
doesn't help that almost everything is trying to kill you in Morrowind.
Yeah, and you don't. Oh yeah, yeah. Morrowind was pretty like, uh,
It's intense.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was hardcore in that respect.
It's not exactly player friendly. You really have to grind in that game, and unfortunately, it's not easy to do with friends because you're all attacking the same thing and you're all leveling up the same things, and it's not leveling as much because you've killed the thing. So it's weird dynamics. But the music in Skyrim had kind of levels, um, where where you would have a certain intensity depending on the type of battle, I think. Where you would, if you're facing like a cave troll or something or some kind of creature, the battle music isn't as intense. Whereas suddenly you're going against a dragon, I think
Right.
there had a bit more going on. But I can't recall it that well because here's a problem with dynamic music is that depending on how much it fades and crossfades, it can become a soup.
Mm.
And so you might end up with music that fades into another set of music to the degree where you don't know where one starts and the other ends, and you can't differentiate them. And so they're not imprinting. And so suddenly you're not actually getting the music. So a lot of the music in some of the
Mm.
dungeons and stuff where it was very ambient, I have no idea what was going on there. Like
Mm.
I couldn't hear the dungeon music and say, "Oh, I'm in a Skyrim dungeon."
Yeah, the way I remember it, it was either Skyrim or Oblivion, where it was like it was like the normal music, and then all of a sudden, fight that takes 2 seconds, and it was 2 seconds. It was like,
Ba-da-da!
yeah, and then it back to
Yeah,
like
and
normalcy, like a mud
it's
crab crawling towards you.
yeah. The mud crabs. Oh my gosh, the mud crabs. The mud crabs are even worse in Morrowind because they're so slow and they're trying to attack you from so far away
Right.
that you would just hear battle music and you're wondering what's going on and you leave, and eventually the battle music turns off and you're like, okay, I don't know what that was about.
Yeah, you're in a town, and trying to he's trying to kill you.
Yeah. Well, that's also another issue. That's a gameplay issue where threat detection was very difficult in some of these games to the degree where threat detection doesn't even work in Daggerfall. So the guards aren't killing
Yeah.
everything that's going after you. The guards kill the things that go after them.
So threat detection from other things.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And it's roughly similar in Morrowind where if you're chased into a town by some creature, sometimes the guards will attack it, other times the guards will completely ignore it and just watch you run through town and just call you a name.
Mm.
And it's just annoying because they kind of fixed that in, well, like they kind of fixed that in uh Skyrim, to the degree where if you get into a fight with a werewolf and you run into a town, the guard will see the werewolf and go, kill it, and they'll go after it too because it's a mutual enemy.
Right. Right. Like the
The
dragons.
tag of mutual enemy, it does not exist in the older games. It's just like,
Mm.
here's this thing that I'm not interacting with, and so it gets kind of annoying when there's a guard standing right
People are
next to a
watching you die.
bandit stabbing you in the
Right.
back.
Right. That's great. That's hilarious. Um, okay, so I have to plug in this computer.
Okay.
Where are you at with time? Like,
I'm at 10:30, which
okay,
is a half hour after we were initially going to start.
right. Oh, right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to like keep trucking?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let me get the charger here.
I got plenty of water.
Word. Dehydrated. Okie doke. Alrighty. I am game. Unintended. Yeah.
We're discussing game.
Yes, we were. Um, okay, so um, maybe. So we were talking about dynamic music,
Yeah.
right? In Elder Scrolls, mostly.
Yeah.
Okay, so what other kinds of music do you see in like games?
In Elder
Like there's
Scrolls?
like the
Oh, in
sound.
games? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's soundtracks, so there's soundtracks, there's dynamic music, and then there's um I would call it thematic or uh cutscene music or something like that. I guess I would throw that in with thematic.
right,
But you have specific music for specific points in time that are fixed in the game,
right,
where a lot of it is depending on the environment that you're in. This is event based, and so that tells you exactly what event is happening, and that's also happened a couple of times in uh in Legend of Zelda,
yes,
where it will pull in an idea out of the music that you're hearing, and so it's not that you're in a certain place. You can be in a certain place that would normally have a different music, and because a cutscene is going on, you're you're getting you're getting a completely different feeling because this is not supposed to be happening. It's like, so you'll see this a lot when you play Majora's Mask, is the okay, so the clock town itself. The clock town is uh, dynamic and it's dynamic, event based, and thematic. So it's all of them because the clock town music, you hear it the whole time. You know, and it just kind of keeps going like that. But as the days progress, as you get to day 2 and day 3, it gets slightly faster and a little bit more unnerving every day. So, because in Clocktown, things are getting a lot more tense.
right,
And so it feels like something is definitely wrong. And it's definitely wrong because when you look up, there's a moon coming at you. So it's not unusual for someone to say, "Oh, there's something wrong here." Give me a second. So it gets really tense, and that can actually be said for a few places, because I think even the adventure theme that you get from being outside in the world, you know, the general well, yeah, you know the Avengers theme sounds like. It's like when you're in Hyrule
dun,
Field in
dun,
Ocarina
dun,
of
dun,
Time.
dun, 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 dun. Yeah,
Yeah, the regular one. They
yes,
have a bit of a twist on that in Majora's Mask, where you're out in the field and it's kind of bouncy, but with with the passage of time, that also gets a little bit different.
right,
I
right,
think it grows in darkness or something like that.
yeah,
But eat and a lot of the music and a lot of the themes in that game are thematic and dynamic.
right.
and so they played really well with the music. Um, in addition to using music as a tool, I think that's the first game in which I see music used as a tool. Not that one, but those games, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, in which music itself is a tool, because you're playing music to get things to happen. It's the first time I had encountered that um, uh, so prevalently.
Right, meaning the like ocarina or
Hmm.
mhm.
Because without it, you can't get through certain things in Ocarina of Time. You know, literally because it's named after it. But the major thing is how you use that in in relation to your uh, in relation to your struggles in Majora's Mask, because the dynamic switches from using tools to using masks. You still get tools, but the
Mhm.
masks play a huge part in it, and a lot of the game is collecting these masks, and each of them is unique and different and actually important.
So are
Some
the masks like the songs you get in Ocarina of Time? Like there's something, or they're just thinking of them as tools, maybe
I would attribute them uh, more
like
towards
items.
being the medallions. But
Right.
like, imagine the medallions and the gems that you get, but instead of them just being keys, they're tools.
Okay.
You can actually do things with them, and there's a lot more of them.
Okay.
So, but some of them aren't required. But if you really want a good ending and you want to make it easier, you want to get every single mask, and
Right.
that's going to be hard because some of them are extremely time based,
Right.
and the number one hardest one is to get is the lover's mask, because you have to go through a specific thing on each day, all 3 days, and actually wait for those things to occur, and so it takes like an hour or something.
Jeez.
Um,
Jeez. Um.
but the masks, uh, no, the music. Let's go back to the music. The music
I'm cool
in
with either.
Majora's,
Like the masks are really interesting too.
yeah, those are cool. When you play it, we can
Word.
get deeper into that one. But the music in Majora's Mask is used as a way of manipulating your environment rather directly, because you're using the Ocarina of Time. And so it doesn't just send you through time or send you back 3 days or help you out a little bit if you want to um, open up a door. It literally can do time stuff, which is like, if you imagine if you had a watch and it could manipulate time, these are the powers you would think it would have. It can slow things down and it can speed things up. And that it's just two settings, but that's extremely powerful in context
Hmm.
where you're uh, if you've got something that you need to be precise about, you'll want to slow down time and make sure it happens exactly when you want it to happen, and then intercede, because it's like Back to the Future. You always know when something's going to happen, and you can be right there, and you can. But if there's something that you have to wait for, but it's going to be a few hours, and you can't just skip around and do stuff, you can speed up time. It's double time and half time, and so you're playing the Song of Time twice as fast or twice as slow.
Mm.
And so it's like the twice as fast is like you're like doubling the notes, and the twice as slow one, I can't remember how that one works, but
And this is
um,
Majora's Mask.
yeah, in Majora's
Yeah.
Mask, and you're messing with time
Hmm.
personally,
Hmm.
and nobody else seems to notice, which is funny. But it's like does this
That's great.
seem really long to you, or like you don't hear comments like that, which I kind of wish you did, because that would have been funny. Um, but the here I will bring in the masks. You get three specific changing masks in which you become a Goron or a Deku or a Zora. And it's like clearly the obvious elemental things. You got like the fire and ice and water and earth and plants and that kind of thing going on. But each of them, when you're in that transformation stage, when you pull out the ocarina, it's a completely different instrument.
Mm.
And so when you're Goron and you pull out your ocarina, you suddenly have this big set of drums in front of you, like giant,
Yes.
different sized bongos in front of you, and you're playing the bongos to these songs, and then you'll hear the ocarina rendition played as bongos. No matter what song it is. It's just like, okay, that's really weird, but neat. And so the first time you do it, you'll be a Deku, and it will be completely weird to you because he'll have these pipes, and it's like he's playing this many bell trumpet, and that's kind of wrapping around him, and so it sounds kind of, but it all works in the dynamic of the game because you have to play the music in context of what's going on to where you playing the bongos for a specific reason when you go interact with the Gorons. And then you play, when you're a Zora, you have this like fishbone guitar. And so you're playing the guitar for a specific reason, and it all makes sense in context, and it all works. And it gets to the point where you end up like playing as a band as yourself. and I think that's probably the best composition in that game, because a lot of the composition are all kind of rehashed and then reused and then redone and then made slightly darker because it's a darker game.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, it like kind of left out some of the older songs, so you can't like relive those. But because the entire construction of Majora's Mask is using all the assets of Ocarina of Time, which is why a lot of the characters and stuff look exactly the same. Because and Nintendo is known for doing this. They will make a game, and then they will use the same assets to make the sequel, because it saves them so much time developing a new game and new graphics and new all this stuff. And so like you can easily just make a sequel after that. That's why a lot of the Zelda games come in twos. And like the Oracle games, where there was supposed to be 3 of them, but they ended up only doing 2.
Okay. That's the game that immediately came to mind when you were like, they come in twos. It's like Oracle of Ages and Seasons.
Yeah, and I don't even know what the third one would have been. It's just like, what other aspect of time is there that you would be able to play with? It's like ages, that's like decades and years and all that stuff. And it's like seasons, like within a year. It's just like, what?
Seconds would have been crazy.
Oracle of every other second. This is like, it's a bit specific.
Yeah.
But yeah, the dynamics of music in video games is a visceral experience that attributes so much to their nostalgia.
Yeah.
Without them, they'd be completely different. They would be simulators.
Right. Yeah, and I've actually found that they can like help carry you through a story or help. The nostalgia. I definitely like the town song goes through my head like not super frequently, but frequently enough to where it's
From Ocarina.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that when you play Majora's Mask, the Clock Town song because of how much you're hearing it, it will just burrow into your brain.